Good morrow, Ashers. Here we are. Another video after 2 whole years. I guess it doesn't really matter too much. I have like, I don't know, less than 100 followers or subs. So here I am just looking to get something useful out to the community before Alpha 2 Phase 1 or Wave 1 releases. And majority of people willing to spend $120 is willing to join the game. I say willing because it shouldn't be a game at this point. It is literally test, and that's a quick reminder that you shouldn't expect too much, which phases me into my first point of the many points I'm about to make in the next 10 odd minutes about useful things you would like to know about the first test and just generally using the game. First of all, the schedule starts on Friday sometime. Expect some queues. These queues are generally not always there. The first weekend we had the Alpha 2. That is the first non-NDA one. Or was it? No, it was actually under NDA. We could play it, but it was fine. They had about an hour and a half queue. Not really an issue. These are expected for any kinds of new launches, and I suspect this weekend will be worse, even though the last weekend, so that would be, the beginning of the month, there was no queues at all. Not a single one. Anyway. So, next up, Alpha, of course, so expect rubber banding, expect all kinds of issues with mobs randomly despawning. I had some weird teleportation things going on, crashes, all kinds of things. Those are to be expected. So just prep yourself for it. I'd recommend playing at reasonably low-end settings, no matter what machine you have, just to mitigate those a tiny bit. So that's the first thing. Next up, in the starting area, this is actual combat side of things, there are a bunch of starter weapons that you can use. These are rusty weapons, but bow, wand, greatsword, shields, one-handed swords are available within these areas, which allows you to go and test them out. They're unique in the sense of how fast they attack, how long their attack chains are, and they have relatively standardized stats, but also progressing the weapon from a leveling perspective, which is separate from your primary level, will give you different things to do with it. Better damage with that weapon type, more chance to do finishers, all kinds of small things. So pick up a whole bunch of those weapons and test them out, just so you have it at the end of the day. Next up, we've got rations and sitting. If you do sit down, you increase your HP regen and your mana regen for that matter. I'd recommend doing that between grinding. You have to be out of combat, obviously, or you can't sit. And eating a ration at the same time makes it go so much faster. These are super cheap in the order of coppers. At the start, it feels like a lot, but it really isn't. You'll get that pretty quickly. Next up, Auto Run. Auto Run is the most useful feature by far on this list. I should have left for either earlier or later, but I just came on it now. If you tap numlock, you will run in a specific direction infinitely. Now, this doesn't work like it does in Black Desert Online, where you pick a place or a destination and you automatically run there. You will run in a quite literal straight line to there. I do not recommend using this when you're in an area where you're at risk. You are going to get killed if you're off the beaten track, and mobs don't easily de-aggro from you. So just be careful when using this. Still very useful. You can continue to use chat and communicate with your friends or people you just met online, which segues me into the next one, which is find some friends in-game. People are more than willing to looking for a group, to team up with people, because the leveling experience is so much better. Or the game in general is just so much better by grouping up with people. 3, 1 healer, 1 DPS, 1 tank. Excellent. Even 2 DPS and a healer kind of works. My favorite being so far is 2 DPS, 1 tank, 1 healer, and 1 bard for utility. Just that layout gives you the most balanced way to defeat mobs and grind out some XP, which again segues me into the next point. Doing anything in the game does not give you XP to any significant degree except for killing mobs. You get very little from the other sources. This would be commissions, random events, raids. All of these things give very, very open world raids, of course, just to be clear. Gives very little XP for the time spent. It seems to be the core focus of XPing right now is via the killing of mobs. So find a spot that nobody else has, get 2, 3, 4 friends or random people advertising in all chats or something, and get someone to join you. Do that. I think this will be fixed in time. Leveling is very slow at the moment, like hours and hours and hours just to get to level 10, especially if you're looking to explore the game a little bit, not just grind it out. Now, I don't specifically think it's too slow, except for the fact that the other sources of XP don't give you good XP. They give you terrible XP. Or terrible rewards in general so far. Now, this is all things that could change. It's just an advice for the Wave 1, just so that you guys know that if you're looking to level, please go grind mobs. That is the next one, is then please look into going into groups, like I said, but try to use chat to do this if you don't have friends. And the way you would add someone from map chat or from accepting your invite is by typing into chat. The chat command essentially is /invite space their chat name. This invites them to the party, irrelevant of where they are. If you right-click on someone, you can obviously invite them as well, but using the chat command allows you to do it if they're not in the vicinity, which is going to be more often than not. Obviously, there are other chat commands. Think whisper, party, all of that sort of thing. So / the command space whatever, whoever you're doing, space message, or whatever the case may be. But the most useful one is definitely going to be the invite one. All right, Z, the key on your keyboard. Obviously, all of these are rebindable. I rebound my auto run to R, for example. Makes sense to me. Bit of a Guild Wars 2 thing. I don't even know if that's the default on Guild Wars 2, but needless to say, I rebound mine, and you can do this for any key. Z swaps your combat modes, where in combat mode, tab, you would have Q as your normal weapon attack. If you hold it in, you'll consistently attack to complete a chain. These chains are very useful in certain ways, and every weapon has a unique chain. So try to understand how that fits into your build. It's important that you finish them, especially on stuff like Fighter, where you get a refresh on one of your other skills if you complete the full attacks. They differs per weapon. For example, the short for it is 5 attacks. So you can hold Q or tap it, whatever you're comfortable with, to do this. I personally think there should be a way to auto this, like literally let it just auto attack when you're in range, but whatever, not important. The E key in tab mode gives you a constant block, unless you run out of stamina. So try and time that. Nonetheless, you don't really want to be blocking just anything. Block also doesn't block damage completely. It blocks a percentage of damage, which can be increased by changing how your build works. Anyway, moving on. If you go to your action combat, which relies more on your mouse, you then face where your camera is pointing with a reticle, like you would in an FPS game. Then left click is your auto attack, and your attack, and right click is your block. I'd say try both. They both have their upsides and downsides. I like the camera controls way better within the Z combat mode, and you can control which enemy you are attacking a lot more closely, especially when it comes to single target damage. So if you're fighting a mob and you want to kill target then your single target ability should hit that person and not the one that's closest to you. There are upsides and downsides to each, so find which works for you. This is not a fast-paced action combat, guys, just to be clear. This is definitely closer to traditional MMOs with some action elements. Anyway, next up, you will be broke most of the time. Your primary income method at the start is going to be selling materials and the primary drop from mobs, which is dust, at least in the early game. Dust is seemingly useless from a crafting perspective, so you are welcome to sell this to NPC vendors at the start, in my opinion, to gain you some silver. This silver can be then used to increase, to get yourself better gear from the same vendors, ideally. There's one in Lion's Hold, so go there, check what it costs. I think a weapon or an armor piece is anything from 10 to 25 silver at the start, which are copper and leather and that kind of variant. So very low end, but they do increase your stats quite a bit, so look into that. that's going to be your primary income, just to be clear, the dust. If you do drop a weapon or armor piece that you're not able to use, which happens on rare occasions, the drop rates are very low at the moment, you can actually offer to sell this in chat. Like, I picked up a greatsword the other day that gives you a casting speed. Now, again, I didn't use this, but I think what happens here is, because I'm playing fighter, is that your time it takes to cast a spell was reduced by this weapon. Now, it's not a lot, it's a small percentile, but I wasn't able to use it, so I sold it to someone for like 15 or 20 silver or something like that, which I felt like it could have been more, because after the fact I actually picked up that your secondary weapon does impact your stats, even if it is not currently active. So if you're holding on to sword and board and you're ready to fight, sword and shield, for those that don't know what that means, the offhand weapon, let's say a bow, is equipped in your offhand, and that affects all your stats, so you benefit from it nonetheless, at least as of right now. So these are useful to have. This person was very grateful, they bought it off of me, and I made 20 something odd silver, a little bit less probably. Next up would be the horse, by the way, a mount. Very cheap, easy to use, not too fast mount that you can get by just doing some of the early quests in Lion's Hold. These quests are pretty quick, they just introduce you to crafting, so please go ahead and do them. You're gonna thank me later. I think that covers the worst of it. Alright, the last thing that I was thinking about. Food. There are food buffs in the game. These are once again purchased from various vendors, not in the starting zone though. This needs to be purchased from, I think, alchemy vendors. There might actually be one in the starting area. I specifically did it somewhere else. And I purchased some food, and this gave me a damage buff. Just stock standard, I hit things, buff increases. This is very useful, especially when you're specifically going out to grind. Don't purchase this just for random playing alone. It's not going to help you too much, which is going to be slow no matter what you do. But in a group, you're doing everyone a favor by running this, and it makes things go faster, which means XP comes in faster, which means dust comes in faster, which means money comes in faster. Anyway. Right, and lastly and finally, don't rush into mobs. Take your time. Pull one mob at a time and see how much you can handle. This game's brutal at times, even at the early levels. Like level 2, if you aggro 2 level 1 goblins, you are going to get pressured. That's just how it is. And that pretty much wraps it up, everyone. So I guess the final thing to say is just have bloody fun. It is still an alpha, still not a game, but I found it very enjoyable. And you can make of it what you want. I'm excited to see where all of this goes. Have a great weekend, guys.